back December the 7th, 2020 with Executive Order 13961. It was partially revoked on January the 19th, 2025, which would have been the very last 24-hour day of presidency. But while we're quote unquote Joe, if President Trump's a threat and he's a dictator and all these things that the liberals are selling on him, then why didn't they terminate that on January the 20th, 2021, if Joe was actual president? But the laws show he wasn't. All right. The laws and visuals show that. And you got to know all of that timeline, which I go over. All right. And I don't think we have the time to do that. But the laws show that he never had an order of succession with the Department of War, which was the Department of Defense. He didn't have an order of succession with the National Security Strategy. All those involve your Joint Chief of Staff. So how could he have a meeting with the Joint Chiefs, your top generals? How could he have meetings with them when he didn't even have an order of succession? The last order of successions were President Trump. Every president, even treasonous Obama, every president has had an order of succession within any military domain except for quote unquote Joe. Now that should get people to go study all of what I talk about. All right. And that order, that chronological. So when time you get to something like Charlie, why would death be used? The term turning point was strategic. This was a turning point in this operation. Just 23 hours ago, Eric Trump posted a photo of a challenge coin, military, and it says mission accomplished. Okay. So this is a turning point as we lead into the golden age. And then also when we get to July the 4th, all right, 2026, President Trump said 3 years ago that starting Memorial Day 2025, we will start to celebrate. But then we get to July 4th, 2026, we will celebrate every single day for a year. All right. He ain't talking about Republicans, conservatives, and patriots alone. He's talking about Americans. All right. So Charlie Kirk was a visual. Now, when we get into the visuals of what you saw that day, it absolutely proves it. All right. I got banned yesterday from going live on Facebook from some stupid post I made in 2024. All right. They knew I'm right over the top but now they put me here. I didn't put me here. I didn't build a platform, ladies and gentlemen. I went globally viral on a video August 24, 2022, saying the same thing I'm talking about now. All my books that you've seen, but my books were published in 2023. But they stem from my documents that I had written from 2017 to 2021 and was published for my friends and family because no one knew me at the time. And then I went on a video, just a regular Facebook Live on a personal page, not a business, and it went globally viral. And then I got validation from all kinds of insiders. I mean, that's why you've seen me at Mar-a-Lago and different. I got the validation. As President Trump said way back 2015, veterans, remember your oath. You're going to need it again. All right. And you might get to serve again. Well, every veteran could be called back in. And President Trump says we got to protect our nation's IQ and the smart people. So he wants all the loyal, smart people who are fighting daily out there. No matter what you're fighting for, be fighting for the good and the right causes. Republicans and conservatives argue more than anybody. And President Trump, he calls this out all the time. He said, why is it always Republicans fighting against each other? So it's typically those who are the ones in arms about this thing because they let emotions and feelings stand in the way of logic and reasoning. So let's look at this shot now. All right. So of all times that they why did they let a gory scene be shown without censorship? All right. When I barely post anything, I posted something on X and it censors it that quick. It wouldn't let me post on Instagram my video last night talking about all the laws and orders of what's going on right now. They
allowed the train video and every angle of Charlie's essentially murder. It was all over. You couldn't miss it. I was trying to avoid it, man. Like it was gory.
So, but here's the thing: veterans are used to gore. All right, and that's unfortunate. I don't like it. No veteran should ever want to glorify that. Right. But every veteran goes through all forms of medical training. And then also, if you see anything in the field or theater, you're going to see it. Right. All right. And that's unfortunate in another way because it desensitizes a lot of veterans, a lot of things to everything else. And then that's why we look like we don't have emotion or feelings ourselves, but it's because we already have the logic and reasoning there. And that's just ingrained. All right, so what they showed that day, first off, you got to go with what they told you straight out the gate. Straight out the gate, mainstream media was already telling you it was a 200-yard shot. No shooter, no location. Why are they saying 200-yard shot when they didn't even have a location? They didn't have a shooter. They didn't have a weapon. So how did they know? They put that out straight out the gate. Charlie Kirk's been shot from about 200 yards, straight out the gate. All right, so there's that. Then when you look at the angle, all right, of all places, this dude has spoken at every freaking campus in this nation. He's sitting in an amphitheater type style where it's elevated as you go up, and there's buildings all behind him. Okay, no, ladies and gentlemen, security. When I go out, my security teams, you have rovers, and they go to the farthest point out of which someone could perch. All right, with any kind of rifle. And that's not even secretive right there.
He should have snipers all over based on his popularity and who he is.
That's correct. And he should, or at least even volunteers who have been in the military before. Right. A lot of my teams have volunteers that have been military. They are trained for this, Marine Corps, Army especially. You don't just have to necessarily be active law enforcement, etc. All right, you have volunteers that do this all the time. All right, and with that dude's popularity. So then other things you got to look at first, too, before we get to that scene again, is he was already replaced. The real Charlie Kirk has a real fat nose, and he's got a real gum line up here. And you can go look at the Charlie they're showing you, completely different. It looks like real Joe Biden and fake Joe Biden. It is daylight and dark difference that even special any kind of surgeries would not fix. And most males don't do that anyway. And when you do, you look like Michael Jackson. God love it. All right. So it don't look good, and it ends up being a little bit more. It's always maintenance, right? And then the maintenance leads to more
leads to you looking nothing like you originally did.
That's right. And so the shot. First off, like I'm wearing Trump Doral shirt right here. There's a spot on his shirt that is visible in the original footage that mainstream media put out. There's a spot right here, and it goes from here to collar to neck. All right, if you slow it down, what I teach people is this: take the original footage, video record it. If you know how to do that on your phone, video record that. Get it in your gallery. Go back to your gallery. All right, push pause. Take your finger on the little scroll bar, hit video record again, screen record, and then take that little thing and just barely move your finger across and watch this mark go from here to here to here to the neck. You can't make this up. Also, look at his ring. He's wearing a ring finger. All right. Ring. There's no such thing as a flip ring. There's people out there spreading that bullshit.
I was under the understanding this was a hinge ring.
No, it goes. He wears it all the time. Why would all of a sudden it go from here to here? Have you ever seen him flip from there to there in any other videos? You got to go watch.
I know. Right? I just saw a hinge ring that he plays with it sometimes, so that's what I was under. That's the silliest thing ever. First off, the squib and everything else shows it. Outside of that, even if the ring ended up being some freaky cool ring that you can flip over, I think more males would probably go buy that for when they go out to the bar. They could flip that ring from their wedding ring to their middle ring. That way they're not married anymore and they can cheat on their wives. All right. So that sounds like a good advertisement for the hinge ring if that exists. All right. So let's go back. Spot moves. All right. There's another theory out there. There's a guy standing beside him like this. If that were the case, we would go ahead and bust that one. If this guy was standing here like that and he shoots to the side, the guy they show doing it, like has his hand on his armpit like that, he is directly to the right of him, which means that the bullet hole would have come in on this side and you would have seen an exit. You would have saw
I know people don't like this because whatever, but deer hunting, I deer hunt. I have a 30-06 and a 7mm Magnum. And let me tell you, when they exit, it leaves like a softball hole. They said this was a bolt action rifle. It don't matter if it was a 243, a 270, a 30-06. It don't matter what it was. It was what you saw on TV, ladies and gentlemen. You would have seen an explosion back here of blood and splatter because they showed you the blood. This is why they're showing you. And then we're going to get to the other part of what President Trump said before. So I'm breaking down the shot. So boom, you've seen that. Also, you saw a shirt. You see this force do like that.
Yeah.
A bullet wouldn't do that. A bullet's not going to do that. You wouldn't see that much recoil in another way on your body. You wouldn't see that. All right. That wouldn't have happened. That's your squib detonating. That's your squib. And it don't matter who was standing around there. I'm so sick of people saying, I was there, blah, blah, blah. It don't matter. This is so good that we could trip people right in front of everybody. Right in front of everybody. Because you're not right there. And you're not going to be there when they grab him and take him out. So anybody who says that. So you'd have seen this. He also wouldn't have done this. So he had laid the microphone down. Then he messes with his nose. The guy right to him behind in the white shirt and the white hat, he messes with his nose and ear, like a third base coach, and a simultaneous with Charlie. And then that's when the quote unquote shot took place. Right after he's signaling, and this guy back here is signaling, and nose, ear, and then he takes his phone like this, the dude, and he goes from here and turns it directly to the angle of which it looked like the quote-unquote shot. So there's that. He's holding his microphone, though. He had picked the microphone back up. If you're shot in the jugular, my friends, all right, I know someone who's been shot in the neck.
It's bad.
I know someone personally who has been shot in the neck. All right, personally. You're not going to be holding the microphone like this. All right, and you wouldn't have leaned into the shot. It wouldn't have done that. You would have done just like this. If you holding the microphone, you wouldn't have rolled your arm like this. You would have done just like this. Because the shot came from that angle, you'd have bam. And then you would have seen the blood burst out. You would have seen that. Okay. If you go watch hunting shows, you can look this up. Even with a bow and arrow, you can see when the arrow hits, when it goes through in the burst of blood on the outside. This is not rocket science, but people make it rocket science because they focus on the death and they focus on the word tragedy, and they don't realize why would they put this on TV all over the media. Then they show this gushing of blood. All right, if you're shot in the neck, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to work with your heartbeat. It would be like a boop, boop, boop. It wouldn't have been pouring out like they showed. Also, since I happen to have a shirt on where you can see my pack here, it shows the blood pouring out and stopping right here. It's not staining the shirt. It don't stain the collar. It don't stain the neck. There's no blood here. There's no blood splatter here. There's nothing. It's just a solid flow from that one little hole they show right there, and it never goes anywhere. And then when you slow the video down, there's splatter going like this. What's it hitting right here to create that splatter out? It's not. This is all mainstream video footage that you can slow it down. Splatter, splatter. Nowhere does it land. It never lands anywhere. All right. That is all AI. And here's what's amazing about this. The day before, President Trump posted about a quick trial. He's talking about quick trials. All right. A month ago, he said, I don't think the nation's ready for quick trials. That is a trial in the morning, execution by end day.
Which right? He already has executive orders reinstating death penalty and
they brought back the firing squad in Idaho, South Dakota.
That's public knowledge. That's not like some deep pay. That's public.
That's right. In Idaho, in South Carolina, they brought the firing squads back. They've already executed a prisoner, I think, in South Carolina by the firing squad already. All right. Now, he also posted the same time that last month. Again, he's reposted it many times, but he posted about, he said, lawyer up. Well, the first one he posted was lawyer up, Democrats, justice is coming. And then he reposted what has been reposted. All roads lead to Obama. Reshare if you would like to see public military tribunals. All right. A public military tribunal, ladies and gentlemen, is where you would see firing squads live on TV And you shouldn't root for it, but a lot of people are because they're wanting to see Hillary and Obama and people like that shot, killed. So when you do the math on all this, the day before President Trump is talking about quick trials on his truth, I went back and found this video again because that was this was the day before. Keep in mind what everybody saw on September 10th. All right. This was the day before. I posted his video where he's going, it's a quick trial. And he goes, boom, 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 bang, boom. He's doing this on live video. And then he goes, you're dead. You're dead. Right there. Well, that's
this was President Trump?
That's correct. All right. I have multiple videos. All right. Well, that's the quick trial. That's not tying directly to Charlie. This is a column showing you what's coming, right? So many people hear that and they go, oh, you're saying that? No, it wasn't a quick trial. They're getting people ready for what they're going to see. Also, September the 4th, Melania had a massive speech at the White House that President Trump reposted about AI, the importance of AI. Everybody's falling for the AI. They fell for AI the 10th, which that's what all AI, what you witnessed, special operation. And now you see an AI with Erica. That is not her. It don't look anything like her. And guess who follows me? 85% of my demographics are females. Guess who is caught on to all this? Females, right? And what are they saying? No sadness detected, no genuine detected, no authenticity detected. She's reading from a script and she said, he was such a good man. He still is a good man. When you're reading from a script, and you type in, he still is a good man, it either means he had something bad on his record and they're trying to brace people for he was doing something he wasn't supposed to be doing back here, or he's alive. All right. And it's a special operation. I have all the laws and orders to show it's a special operation. All right. But if he ended up being assassinated, it was still a special operation for another reason. It don't look that way. The term turning point and where we are, like you were talking about earlier with people being fatigued, and they are, all right, it's a turning point and people are now being fired for what they're saying. You cannot fire people for freedom of speech, ladies and gentlemen. You can't fire them. You cannot fire people for that. It's a wartime order, all right? And I'm going to tie that in really quick. Emergency powers. President Donald John Trump invoked 8 national emergencies that are still alive. They're still active. He had 11, but there's 8 of them that quote unquote Joe continued over to January the 20th, 2025. They make no sense why quote unquote Joe would continue these if President Trump was a threat to democracy and a violating the Constitution and all these things that they claim. All right. It shows a special operation. All right. Each national emergency has emergency powers, 120 statutory powers. And you only need a few of them: deploying military forces, freezing assets, restricting telecommunications, and regulating commerce. Regulate commerce, tariffs. Yep. All right. President Trump put those in 2018. He told you in a debate, did you notice he didn't take out my tariffs? He can't. Why couldn't Joe, if he was president, take out the tariffs? He would be president. He could do that. That's a presidential authority. The Trade Act of 62 and 74. And Congress put that in the presidential hands. So, yes, he could do that if he was actually president. So there's one. 2, the tariffs. Not one single tariff was removed from 2021 to 2025. Not one single Obama, Clinton, or Bush appointed judge removed a tariff from 2021 to 2025. But all of a sudden they're a threat now. All of a sudden they're trying to block it. It's all theater, and it's building up to a big finale. And then also 2021 to 2023, they showed that there was a Democrat House and Senate and Democrat president. They couldn't change anything put into place by President Donald John Trump. They took everything and just handed it right back to him. Restricting telecommunications. This is where it comes in right here. Restricting. President Trump posted a while back 2 times that the appeals court had upheld a ban on the Associated Press. All right, they can't go to the White House or Mar-a-Lago. The Associated Press, ladies and gentlemen, but you still see them writing articles over here, but they can't go to the White House or Mar-a-Lago. That is a wartime order. You can only do that as a wartime president. That's 47 United States Code Section 606, which is titled War Powers of the President. He can terminate, revoke, rescind whatever he wants to do with radio, TV, and internet broadcast. That's telecommunications. All right. So when you look at her up here delivering this thing, and then you have people out there getting fired from their jobs for saying something, even if they have an opinion completely opposite, that wouldn't be possible unless there was a wartime order put there, and they're trying to reflip this quote unquote norm and this culture society that's become all this hatred and all this stuff that wasn't supposed to be there. That's what that's for. All right. And then your military deployments. But when you watch her and she says that, now here's where your grand finale comes in. And you cannot argue with this. Not even you. You can't argue with me.
Yeah, so before you go into this,
all right.
We've talked about this many times. You and I have been talking about this many times. I have, not exhaustively because I'm not an expert in it, but I have looked over all the opinions of the last 5 days, right? And I've even talked to a good friend of mine who's connected to SEAL teams. He's connected to ex-CIA. He's connected to hunting. He's in the survival world. I've talked to people in law, etc., and nothing is making any sense about this other than my own conspiracy of old governments, intelligence agencies, etc., which makes sense to me. And Derek, I would love not to believe you because it sounds crazy, but what you're saying makes sense. And honestly, strangely enough, the AI thing made sense to me right away. Because even with the ring thing, if I take that to the side, everything else. So I'm a doctor. I don't deal in emergency medicine. I don't see a lot of blood because I'm in natural health, but we had to go through cadaver lab. I saw dead bodies, etc. And when it got shot and I slowed it down, first of all, I said, if that's a real shot to the carotid, you're done in about 1 second. You don't even hit the ground. You're gone. Like, you're just gone. There's too much blood right away. But my first thought was, he's wearing a white shirt. Nothing got on his shirt from that explosion, which is very strange. And then second of all, everyone caught it. Everyone shared it on quote unquote television, which is now social media. But second, they cleaned up the area super fast afterwards, which is technically a crime scene, which is insane. And there's a million phones out there. These kids are all using phones. You're telling me no one got video evidence of him on the ground afterwards or him being carried out? I mean, there's one film of him being carried out and it's very short. There's no blood dripping anywhere. None of that made sense, Derek.
And his arm is stained like dye, not blood. And I told people I'm about to share a photo of me cleaning a deer where you see blood on me.
Yeah,
It's not.
You get it all over you.
You get it all over you, but also, like you say, a jugular is a completely different shot than anywhere else on your body.
Correct.
All right. I mean, even just nicking your ear, when I've shaved too close to my ear, you'll bleed like a stuck hog, as old Southern saying. I mean, You can't stop that. That's just your little ear, little vessels here. Same thing with President Trump. I showed all this way back. That's where people need to go back.
I can't buy the Trump assassination anymore either. I can't buy that he just happened to move his head at the right time.
What I want people to know is that this is not a lie by President Donald John Trump. This is a special operation by the military, and you should appreciate it and respect it once you go read and study it. All right. So it's part of this. We could not sustain and maintain America with the way it was and the way it was headed. And then what we reached with all this just dog eat dog and all these people just fighting over the dumbest things and want to kill each other over really things that, if you can be a gay Buddhist at your house, but not want some kind of reform or change with the government, whatever, to pay for it, you could be a gay Buddhist at your house. No one's going to mess with you.
None of us care as long as you don't put it on society.
That's correct. And so it's the same thing with me or anybody else. They don't want to see PDA in public. Well, I'm an old school, there's a time and a place for everything. And that's what we got to get back to. And that's what they're flipping. So it's a cultural thing, societal thing, and a norm thing that they got to flip. And that's all what that is in the pyramid. So when you go look, you want to see your absolute validation. One, it's overkill, it's overproduction. I've never seen anybody share a video of a hearse in a garage right next to a Packard, like a 1932 Packard, looks like a fancy old car. This is what Erica is showing on that they're bringing the casket into this garage, closed garage, all right, putting it in the back of a hearse, and there's like a Packard. You got to look that up. You don't know what it is, ladies and gentlemen. It's an old car, an old Packard sitting right beside it. All right, real nice, old school. Puts that in there. That's the weirdest I've ever seen in my life. It's overkill. Also, who would be filming over you? Oh, God bless this man. She's sitting there on his hands. So you can see a gory thing all over the internet, all over everybody. You can see gore, but now you can't see the face of the corpse. All right. All she's showing is his hands.
I agree.
People.
I agree.
It's not. So then here's your validation. Now, every veteran in this nation sometimes we can come together. We all have different opinions on other things in life, but veterans can typically sit in a room together and have the most craziest idea, the craziest belief, and laugh with each other, not get mad at each other. All right. That's what camaraderie does in the military. Because at the end of the day, we just don't give a, you know what. All right. And so, like with each other, but we don't want each other dead or hurt over their belief. Same thing we're talking about with civilians. I don't want a gay Buddhist hurt because some idiot can't accept that, as long as they're not doing something they're not supposed to be doing, or cramming it down someone's throat, or messing with a child. Right. I will personally defend for anybody, because they should come to the realization in their life, whether they believe there's a God or not, whether they believe they're going to hell or not, or whatever the beliefs are out there, they should come to that realization on their own. We do have to have laws and orders. We do have to have a foundation of rules and principles and protocol and etiquette, because if we didn't, with what we've had, then we'd have a lot more people taking the law into their hands and justifying it, all right, in a court of law, because it wouldn't be about law then. It would be just, well, they offended me and I didn't like it, so I shot them. You can't do that. So when we know that, all right, so that's how you have to say it, though. But veterans, if Charlie Kirk, which we already know was not a veteran, but what they're showing right now on TV, and she's already shared it, and all people got it, the Air Force 2, and the Air Force is performing a military funeral honors, walking up to the casket. He is not a veteran, ladies and gentlemen. The only people who qualify for a military funeral is a veteran or active duty. All right. And if you have some kind of merchant marine status or something like that, that wasn't a full service, but it got to be something of that nature. All right. And it's very clear. It's only 4 things when you go to every military site. He was not a veteran. All right. That right there is your full validation. You're still in a military occupation, military operation, and continuity of government, the 45-47. Because if that was real, knowing he's not a veteran, that would lose a lot of veterans in this nation, because that's a military honors. It's for presidents and vice presidents as well, but that's a military honors only deemed for veterans. All right. And President Trump will lose a lot of veterans in this nation if that was all done for a guy who's never been in service. Doesn't matter. See, this is where people got to separate emotions and feelings. Doesn't matter what he did to society and what he did as a human being. Nothing to do with that. I'm not knocking that. See, that's where people can't separate.
Well, I mean, Billy Graham didn't even get that. I mean, Billy Graham, obviously not military. Billy Graham was, I mean, the pastor of the world essentially at that time, right? And yes, he got a very nice resting, but it was obviously it's not military. And the vice president, the president, are not showing up to do what they're doing and taking his casket and everything else. Like, and what you said about Erica's her video, when it went out, I noticed her on Friday. I said they changed her hair from curly to straight, which is very strange. They changed her character. That's odd to me. Also, it's odd to me for a woman who's that young to have to come out and say something on a Friday. She should have waited through the weekend. I think it's very strange and odd. If she was actually a very grieving widow with 2 kids, I understand he's a public figure, but to make a statement, it could have waited through the weekend for her to grieve a little bit. But then I'm like, why are they social mediating his casket and her with an open cat? Like, that's like, because you can tell she's not holding the phone, right? I'm like, why is she allowing somebody to hold a literal camera phone over her shoulder as she grieves. I don't care what the rings say. I'm just looking at this makes no sense to me. Like, why are we publicizing his death so fast? Like, that doesn't make sense, Derek, to me.
Overproduction and quick. And so it's a tie-in to your quick trials. What President Trump, they've been bringing this. So we got to go into the Red October. And everybody you got to remember who's been subpoenaed in August, September, and October. Now, everybody who's following that knows that Bill and Hillary have been subpoenaed in October. We're not far off from October. All right, Jeff Sessions is not far down the road from where I'm sitting right now as we speak.
Isn't there a Hillary Q drop in October or November?
And Jeff Sessions is not far from where I'm sitting right now as we speak. All right, he was subpoenaed in August. Where's Jeff Sessions been this whole time? All right, so President Trump just shared a post about 3 or 4 weeks ago where he's holding a Q plus in his hand. All right, so now what I tell people about Q is this: Q is no good unless you know laws and orders. You got to make them applicable together. They don't work without each other.
Not game theory showing you how laws and orders work over a period of time, and it shows you the different breaks of a timeline, what could happen, and they're obviously watching in the future because we're
correct. Well, special operations, we're always like 2 and 3 years ahead of everybody. So you got it, but it's showing that this is a flip. This is going to be it's a resetting of the Declaration of Independence to the T. 2017 to 2021 was a resetting of the legislative branch. All those unique laws and orders. 21 to 25, that was a resetting of the executive branch. And there's documentation that I showed for this. And then right now, 2025 to present day, but it'll be out, is the resetting of the judicial. That's why it's judge this, judge that, judge this. It's 4th Circuit this, 5th Circuit that, 6th Circuit. It's judge. All right, it's a resetting of everything. And then the justice is coming, like President Trump said, your military tribunals and all these other things that are taking place. All right, so it's already been done, but it's just going to be on display, right? For people that know it's already been done, but the target audience don't know that. So they got to get them in every way they can, because the way we maintain and sustain this, on the flip side, is having every American in place where they know their capacity, whatnot. And here's the other thing is President Trump, he mentions this he just says it all the time about the future. And then in order for President Trump, which I put the hat, right here. In order for President Trump to look so different than any other president in history, it had to look this way via military laws and orders. And it's the only way they could pull it off was military. All right, military was established first in this nation. We'll be the first and we'll be the last if there ever was a last, because we're absolutely fight for it no matter what.
So military is the only way. We're waiting for this military is the only way, but the military is the only way has already happened technically.
But for the target audience, it hasn't. Right?
Correct.
Because it's all being controlled via TV, because that's 100%. How people they do this. They're all glued to the TV or their cell phones daily, but they're normally in tune with other people, your mainstream people, not necessarily me. And if they do find me at this point, then they either completely lose their mind another way, or they go, or they go nosedive and go, holy crap, what have I been missing? All right. So what it's leading to, people always ask, well, what is it leading to? I'm like, well, first off, you got to know what's going on with all your justice, right? That President Trump's talking about. Justice is coming. All right. And then how do you flip that? Well, I don't make predictions, and people who know me know I don't make predictions. But when they allow a gore like that on TV, that shows that there's something that's got to come to the American people. Have got to see what punishments are if you do these things. And he said for years, this is treason at its highest form. Treason at its highest form will be absolute death penalty. All right. And it's going to be via the same way Texas, one of my states that I lived in a long time. In 1935, all the way up to 35, they were hanging people for stealing a horse and made the whole town watch it, where you go, oh, what did he do? Well, he stole a horse. You think if you were a kid watching that, your mom and daddy told you that's what you get for stealing the horse? See, so you got to bring that realization back.
It's kind of like chopping the hand off for stealing. So do some of us wonder if it's too much? Maybe, but you won't steal.
You won't do it anymore. That's right. So you bring the realization back. And it's also showing the laws and orders being reestablished for the Americans to know about. You don't have to be a lawyer to know the law. You don't have to be a congressman or woman to know the law. He's got to reestablish what our founders talked about in the Declaration of Independence. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations becomes destructive of these ends, it is a right, and it says two different ways. It is the right of the people to overthrow. Then it says it is their right and it is their duty to throw off such government. So there's two different forms there showing people that we got to reestablish our foundation. That's what everybody's been watching. So what would it lead to? Here's what I think they're going to do. I'm probably going to be wrong on this, but it's only a prediction if I've ever made a prediction. I mean, can you imagine sitting in a bar, right, and you're watching the game? We'll say Alabama, because Alabama fans would freak out if the TV all of a sudden flipped and changed, right? And it flipped over to an EAS, emergency alert system, but nothing scary. But let's say that every TV, boom, 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 every phone, boom, 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 right? You don't know who's in a bar sometimes, who's liberal and who's not, especially if you don't know them, you're not friends with them. So imagine everybody's phone flips over, right? And everybody's like, what the heck happened? Jason, turn that TV back. He's like, hey, it's every channel's this way, right? And the bar owner's like, ah. So all of a sudden, you see all these people on there, right? Joe, Obama, what if they take their mask off for the whole world to see? Would that not? And here's what President Trump said. Now watch this, how he did it. Way back 2016, what alerted me to what was happening? And people asked me, how did I figure all this out? And I said, one, my family lineage of military. So I owe it to all my family lineage for teaching me their experience in life, et cetera, with military knowledge, passing that down, and then what I gained with mine and everything else I've done in life and putting that together. So first and foremost. So I'm sitting there listening to President Trump on the 2016 campaign. And when Jeb Bush said, who's going to vote for you, who's going to back you, who's going to support you, President Trump, being a smart ass like he is, says, well, Jeb, that's a loaded question. That's more than one question. And if the moderator would give me time, I'll answer that. All right. And that's when they had all those Republicans on stage. And he was, I mean, it did sound for the average person at the time like, oh, my God, this is too much drama, right? Because they were just always interjecting over each other and interrupting each other. And it was just yelling and screaming, and you did this, and you're a liar. And it was chaos, right? But President Trump showed, he just stood there, and that's when his famous, all his expressions started popping out where he do the grin and everything. Well, he pointed to Ted Cruz. He said, the biggest liar on this stage, ladies and gentlemen, is this guy right here. Then he said Marco Rubio didn't have the kahunas to be president. All right, didn't have that fire, but he was telling you something else. And then you had Jeb, and he butchered Jeb and George and the Bush family all there, not just Jeb. So Jeb asked that. President Trump said, well, Jeb, he said the American people are going to vote for me because they're tired of bullshit politicians like you. Every single one of you get on this stage and you tell the American people what they want to hear, and you never back it up. I'm not a politician. I'm a businessman. I will win the people over by the economy. And when I do that, they will trust me with the military, because never again will we voice to the public what's going on with our military. If you find out, guess who else finds out? So he told everybody right there that mostly Americans care about the economy. You don't really pay attention to military. All right, don't know anything about military laws, don't know anything about orders, customs, regulations, tactics, strategies, etc., and then how they pair with federal. Only four ways: national emergencies, executive orders, proclamations, and treaties. There's only four ways military pairs with federal again. So he said that. And then he said, who's going to back me and support me? I have 200 generals backing me right now and more to come. Well, that was a quote-unquote conspiracy theory that was said for years. The liberals called it a conspiracy. My grandfather that served during World War II again, and then my great-uncles did not know each other. Completely different set of family. All right. How was it that those great-uncles, same age bracket, and my grandfather, same age bracket, how was it that they had told me those stories about the 200 generals? And the 200 generals, ladies and gentlemen, don't mean it was 200 solid and that, oh, well, they could have died. No, generals are a fraternity. And the good generals all get around and talk. They talk to each other. And they go to D.C. 2 or 3 times a year with every president. So they are fully aware of what's going on.